Christophe for organizing the event, and and also to start a network, right, with Chris and with the help of Marcel, of course. And so this talk does not really talk too much about the result. It's trying to address the title actually that Christophe was so kind to choose for me, towards a quantum econophysics. And why did Sir Christophe choose this title? Because I did not come up with title, basically. So, there you go. So,
sorry for that.
yeah. So first of all, I think I want to start with the thing that I absolutely did not know what actually we would mean with. We would not know. So I would not know how to define it. Maybe we want to define it quantum-like econophysics, but I'll get to this a little bit later on. Now, let me just a little bit. If because that's kind of what I have been working on a little bit in the last few years, if we want to talk about what those things are here, those quantum-like applications to social science, and basically, maybe in a nutshell, we can kind of define it in this way, where formalisms from quantum mechanics are used to address problems which lie completely outside of the natural remit of quantum mechanics. And in some sense, such applications, especially within the domain of psychology, were already asked way back in the 1950s. It's maybe not so well known, but there was work which was published recently, about a few years ago, in a book which appeared with Princeton University Press, on letters which were exchanged between Wolfgang Pauli and Jung, the psychologist, and where they were exchanging ideas on things like, for instance, complementarity, whether you would have some analog of complementarity, which we know to exist, of course, in quantum mechanics, in psychology. And if you want to read more about that, then this is the book where you can find it. A very, very nice book, which documents those exchanges already way back in the 50s. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about, because the way I understood that Christophe was setting up this event was really to see how we were looking at econophysics in terms of applications towards social science, and I just wanted to discuss that maybe a little bit more in general here. And in my head, I think one can do two things, and we can either borrow a tool, and we have seen examples of this today, right? Or we can borrow a framework. And I want to kind of distinguish those two things very quickly. So let me just look, very simple example here, which we all know, which we have talked about it even today, which we even have mentioned, the name we mentioned, right? Any student, for instance, coming to learn about derivative pricing, what will you tell him? Well, you know, derivative pricing is a very successful theory, probably the most successful theory ever in social science. There's trillions of dollars hanging on that theory, but the Black-Scholes partial differential equation is actually related to a heat equation. There's a first time derivative and there's a second derivative towards position, and it's an equation which is in fact very well steeped in physics. Now here's a second example, and of course we also talked about that today. There is, and Marcel was actually definitely talking about it, you can very clearly see that price changes are not distributed in norm and according to Gaussian. And there is work by, for instance, Tiziana Di Matteo, who reformulated Black-Scholes model for much more general distributions than just Gaussians, where the distributions which were dependent on this Q parameter. Right. Now, let me give another example on somebody you know very well. I think it's Mauro, who who said that income is not, like energy in physics, conserved by economic processes. And here, this is an example where, if you look at energy conservation, you look at exchange between, for instance, I buy coffee and I pay for coffee. This is a conserved process, but from the moment you have production, right, into the process, you have a problem with conservation of energy. And that, I think, is a very big problem we have in economics when we try to apply this, when we try to use ideas from physics to economics. Right? I'll come back to this later. Another example here is a very simple example where we try to introduce very simple ideas from from quantum mechanics, where you talk about superposition. And here you have this idea that if I'm reading a book, right, whilst I'm reading a book, my ideas are mixed up with other ideas. Right? How is my son doing outside on his scooter? Right? And I can kind of come up with a superposition of ideas in this way with those cats, right? So this is one, and right, those are cats. Those are the probabilities, and I can superpose those things. Now, this is maybe, I don't think this is really very insulting in terms of formalism. I think this is fine. You could do the same thing for price, right? You could superpose those value states here, which are those cats, and that's the price state here. Not really insulting, but of course, it's asking right away a couple of issues, such as, well, are those ID cats, for instance, linearly independent? Are they a basis for a space? Or let's go a little bit further. Sorry. Right? What's the idea of an additive inverse in this case? Or what is the idea of having two IDs which are orthogonal with each other? Right? So, kind of problems we want to answer, maybe. Now, I've given some very simple examples of just tools, but now let's think a little bit about importing maybe framework. And basically this whole talk is not trying to talk about new results or anything like that, but the talk wants to really steer towards the idea that, okay, let me not give it out right away, let me just see if people will respond to it in the way I expect, maybe not at all, so it's okay. So we have talked about tools, but we could also import a framework. Let me give you two examples of what I think could be a framework. Here is the first example. I mentioned this idea, this problem with conservation, that's not occurring in an economy which goes beyond just exchange. There is a very nice work called Statistical Microeconomics, which was published in Physica A a while ago by Professor Bellard. And this is very beautiful, and I want, this is really a framework, this is really an approach which provides for a model where economics, where a very basic economics model, which is just basically equilibrium pricing, can be enriched by using physics. And let me just come to this. He's using a simple, he just uses basically a Hamiltonian framework where he actually defines, I should have another little horizontal line here, the potential function as the sum of the demand and the supply function. Economics-based demand and supply function will be defined as being a potential function. And what is interesting with this type of approach is that you see that if you minimize that potential function, you actually recuperate the equilibrium price as you would find within economics, which is the intersection between the usual supply and demand, which we teach within basic microeconomics. But there is also dynamics involved in it, so it's not only just potential, but there's also kinetic part, a time part here, and a growth by factor x here, and even some interpretation of what would happen, M being the income, what would happen if the income is large or small, and how that will influence x relative to x bar, as the voltage here. So this is a very, I mean, you have to look at the paper, because actually there are several papers which appeared in Physica A, also with data, where he estimates potentials for commodities. And this is, I think, one of the very few models, or the very few papers, I think, in the econophysics area, where really a Hamiltonian framework is introduced at the absolute root of an economic model, that is, the model which is the equilibrium pricing model in macroeconomics. I think that's one of the very few papers which does that. And that's an example of important, really, in some sense, a framework here. A second example, maybe, is in this kind of quantum-like area, is revolving around this idea of, and it actually comes back a little bit to what Marcel was saying, about quantifying noise. So if I have a quantity x0 and noise is present, there is a measure of information called Fisher information, which can measure the information. So if you look at the density function over this x, and this is very, very tight, then you have a lot of information, so the gradient is very high. Now this, it can be shown using this work by Frieden, which comes here from this book here, that the minimum Fisher information solution can be shown to be using real amplitudes, so Q being real amplitudes, this being the density, to follow a Schrödinger-like differential equation. And this is something which is contained in a paper by Hawkins and Frieden, which was presented here some way back. It's also the exact reference I forgot. It's absolutely not in Physica A. It's another journal. It appeared in. But anyhow. Now, what is interesting with this thing here is that Fisher information also has a very, very clear link with a theory which is an interpretation of quantum mechanics, which is called Bowman mechanics, where in fact two potentials are proposed. So Bowman mechanics is an interpretation of quantum mechanics which actually tries to interpret quantum mechanics more from a classical mechanical point of view, where paths are allowed, and where where you have a set of paths which can occur and they collapse to one path when h goes to 0. But it's a very interesting approach for us, and we're working on this now. This Fisher information actually can be shown to be proportional to this quantum potential, which is absolutely a unique type of potential which comes out of this theory called Bowman mechanics. And we have, and this is via Andrei Krennikov actually, I will show you here the key reference. The key reference here is a paper which was authored by Andrei Krennikov in 1999, where he actually introduces this idea where the quantum potential could be used as a source of information, and where you can extend the Newton equation, so the minus the gradient of V to minus the gradient of V plus Q, and you can derive paths, but which are also information driven. So what we are doing now with one of my PhD students is actually estimate this Q for real data. So we can estimate the real V for real data for commodities using the Baki paper, and we can also estimate the real Q for real data. And then we can see what happens in terms of changes in this gradient, how that path is being affected by changes in information. This is something which we have been working on for a while now. Now, if one uses those formalisms in general here, like the ones I just described, does one imply, even very much unwillingly, that the macroscopic world is somewhat classical mechanical or quantum mechanical? Let me now, I want to play very bad salesman, and let's assume that I'm now put in front of torture commission, right? And for truth, let's call it TCT, whatever. And the guy, the presiding judge, tells me, look, do tell me what problems you see, even if you're not that sure with the stuff you are doing. Don't you dare to admit anything. So here goes my non-exhaustive list. Problem number one, We talked about energy conservation. Okay, I think that's probably more or less well settled that that's a problem. I can't defend myself. Okay. Potential approach, which I very briefly explained here, talks about supply, so it talks about production. This of course has nothing to do with conservation. Problem number 2. We've talked a little bit about classical mechanics. I think from what I understand, states in classical mechanics are totally reversible in time. I don't know if prices in finance are kind of characterized by such determinism. Quantum mechanics, we talked about states. Well, we have orthogonal states at time 0. Will there still be orthogonal at time t? Right? Well, why should I have to assume those kind of things within the social science context? So here again, I can't defend myself either. So, for instance, here in this example here, from a quantum mechanical point of view, if, for instance, value states were an ingredient of the price states, why would they have to be orthogonal at time 0 and also at time t? There's no explicit good reason to believe that. Bohmian approach, non-locality, huge trouble, right? If you present this in front of people from quantum mechanics, they say, right, non-locality, right? I mean, of course, non-locality doesn't exist in the world as we know it. Right? So the outcome of a measurement be available immediately. That's right, how real is non-locality. Now, let me go back here to the beginning of the talk. We mentioned at the beginning of the talk we weren't sure what quantum-like econophysics may find. But for me, I'm still grappling on what econophysics really is dealing with. And does it deal, and maybe we should discuss it. Maybe this is just the moment to kind of try to discuss it a little bit. Does it deal with applications of classical or statistical mechanic formalisms to social science? Question mark. Right? Is econophysics centrally concerned about providing models like in economics? Question mark. Or is econophysics more concerned with explaining phenomena with statistical mechanical techniques and models are more nafted towards? Question mark. Maybe we should discuss. The application of this quantum-like formalism via the use of so-called quantum probability to decision making, to give you an example, I haven't talked about it at all here, right? Have mainly centered on reformulating decision making models, I have to stress this here, in economics. It has mainly looked at trying to understand, maybe not to understand, but maybe trying to understand, to reformulate what does it mean reformulating decision-making models in economics is basically trying to tackle some of the paradoxes which have plagued the axiomatic structure of economic decision-making, like Allais paradox, we talked about it, Gottfried talked about it, right? Or Elsbeck paradox, or Machina paradox. Those type of things have tried to be tackled by this idea of using a generalized type of probability model, quantum probability being one of them, and it has been fairly successful in doing that. But by doing so, it has gone into a reformulation of a model as known in economics, this axiomatic structure, it has kind of tried to enrich it. So I think a principal difference, and this has not come out in the talk today here, because I was trying to talk to you about Bohmian mechanics and all that stuff, but I mean, if you look at the work which has dealt with quantum-like applications in decision-making, you will see this, I think, that the principal difference here between this quantum-like approach and econophysics, I think, is that maybe econophysics is less interested in formulating an economic model. The counterexample is the Baki model, because Baki is probably one of the few, I think, where that happens. Whilst the quantum-like approach is precisely interested in reformulating such an economic model. And now my question is this. Is this absence of reformulating this economic model the source of all the opposition we are getting in the economics community? That is, look guys, we don't want to hear you, because basically you're not coming into our models and try to reformulate and augment them. Right? It's maybe probably more subtle than that. And recently we had a talk here at my university from a very well-known academic, I forgot his name, but he's a very, very famous guy. And he mentioned that game theory should be the integrating discipline among all the social sciences. Yeah? In that same talk, if I understood him well, he also mentioned that departure from classical decision making should not bother us. Those departures are not important, he mentioned. They are not important. This was the argument. Like bacteria, which minimize travel distance from point A to point B, we consumers, we can actually be assumed to maximize utility subject to budgetary constraints. None of us know how we do that, how we calculate those Lagrangian multipliers, but this is our human interpretation of setting up the problem. So we are born with an optimizer template in our heads, just like bacteria have such a template. This is more or less what I understood he was saying. So departures from decision making will not be informative here. I'm not saying that I would agree with that, but that's kind of what this gentleman was saying. Hence, of course, should we then even bother to come back to decision making with, say, for instance, more general probability rules like we have from quantum mechanics. So maybe to talk about it later. I say yes, of course, we should, but yeah. Necessary condition, I think, for acceptance by social science, especially economics or econophysics, I think, is to get into the economic model and try to amend or reformulate the economic model. And to focus efforts on explaining the phenomena with physics techniques, although very, very valuable, as we've seen today with all the papers we had here, I don't think will ever lead to acceptance in the economics community. But let me just finish with this kind of confusing comment, which is a very nice paper by Draat, Katznelson, and Michielsen, which appears in this journal here. This is what they say in the beginning of the paper. Strictly speaking, although a rigorous derivation of, say, the second law of thermodynamics from classical quantum mechanics is lacking, our belief in thermodynamics is not based on mathematical deduction, but on its power to account for everyday experience. Here the question is, are economic models there for the purpose of glory, of mathematical deduction, without too much regard to account for everyday experience? That's, of course, what I think a lot of people in the econophysics community probably believe, I would think. And I think I will leave it at this. Maybe we want to reflect on this, and I want to thank you for coming here. But I think what we really want to do, if Chris is happy to discuss, because we have some discussion time.
Well, yes, we have
before you ask questions, is where can we be novel in our approach on econophysics and its applications as to social? Where can we be novel? Mm-hmm. And what should we do in order to be novel? So it was very interesting talks here. I'm always very concerned about how the finance and economics community is accepting this.
Yes.
And as I was saying to Professor Di Matteo, where is she now? I hear. I would maybe start a discussion. What happened to this very famous meeting some of you attended at what was this now called? I forgot now. There was a very famous meeting, it was a very crucial meeting where there were very, very well-known economists and physicists attending a meeting back in the 90s in Santa Fe. Santa Fe Institute had a very... What happened after this meeting? Anybody knows?
I was not voted.
Were you there, Marcel?
No, Anderson, Gelman were there.
Gelman was there.
At the meeting with Anderson.
But then there are also very famous economists.
Well,
Yes, please.
if I may, I mean, it's funny, this is the chapter 2 of the PhD in Cambridge, the Santa Fe story. The point is that it's institutional. What happened? I mean, the Santa Fe Institute, they needed to find money. They were out of money. They didn't find money anymore. And then they went to see some bankers. They give them money. And basically, these bankers, they give the money to Santa Fe Institute. And the director at that time was allowed to stay director of physicists. But the banks said to them, in the future, we want to have a director in economic. From an economic department, and then they reorient the way of working in the Santa Fe Institute. I mean, if you check all the studies, you can check that, and that's very funny from a methodological point of view. Even if you check all the publications they did, you have an evolution, a clear evolution, and that will become, I mean, at the end of the day, they begin to totally to split and not to continue this research that was at the beginning to apply the complexity, all the complex studies to economics from a very large point of view. And what they did, they continued with Brian Arthur, and they focus on agent-based modeling more and more, and to focus on this perspective. But they didn't continue what became statistical econophysics. I mean, Mantegna, Stanley, and so on. They became autonomous field, subfield of that. They talk a lot at the beginning, but if you check in the publication, you have a lot of publications related to what we call today the statistical econophysics, but it disappeared from the publication. And you have an increasing number of publications of agent-based modeling, computers, agent-based modeling, and so on. So there is a split there. And the reason was Brian Arthur, I mean, the reason, in good point, I mean, this guy is a genius, but I mean, this guy is an institutional reason, where the money came from a bank and they wanted to have economists at the top. So they asked Brian Arthur, who was not a mainstream guy, who was outside of the mainstream, but he said, okay, look, we have to deal with some stuff from economics, and what is in economics, what is the basic stuff? It's individual, we start from the micro perspective. So agent-based modeling was, from a methodological point of view, quite natural to start with that. And they begin with that, and if you check, I mean, I did a kind of survey of all the publications of the Santa Fe Institute, you have a decrease of papers related to, correlation, statistical econophysics. And then this kind of publication emerged independently of the Santa Fe Institute. So you have some links after. But it's very funny to observe that. I mean, well, I can send you stuff. I plan to one day to do something with this chapter too. But I mean, it's institutionally we can explain what happened. In terms of science, it's not a question. But science is nothing without money, without institutions, without It's more complex than science. But what you said is totally true. I think is the fact that. And actually, that makes a link with what we said before. If you want to, to convince finally economists and financial economists to be more involved in economic physics, I think it's important to talk to them in their words. I mean, to reformulate some of their models.
This is my feeling. I don't know.
And
your feeling.
actually, I mean,
maybe I'm wrong.
It's a large part of the book. It's a large part of the book. We say that we have physicists, we have financial economists. Most of them, both of them, they are very clever persons. They are using statistics, they are very good, both of them, and they are very clever. But why? They don't collaborate more. There is something there. That's strange. It's a very simple question, but this is the starting question of the book that we decided to do. So we look on financial economists, they have their techniques. They deal with the extreme value and this way. What about econophysicists? I mean, statistical econophysics. We don't talk about agent-based modeling. We were very quick on that. We say, okay, this is a specific part of econophysics. It's not our cup of tea because we focused on Mantegna, Stanley, all this field. And what they do, they deal with extreme value in another way. But why they don't talk? They use the same data. They use the same statistics, but the same words, but in a different way. If you pay attention, I mean, it's not so difficult. And in the book, we really try to emphasize this point. It's totally doable to reinterpret, I mean, what econophysicists are doing and what financial economists are doing. It's possible to reinterpret. Sometimes they use, for example, the Levy process in a different way. If you check in the methodology, they use the word because when you say for a financial economist, you explain him, Mantegna and they use, or Stanley, they use a stable Levy process, and the economists, they say, come on, we use that since it's 1 century, we use that, nothing new. But pay attention, look in details, and you will say that it's not totally, the implementation of these processes are not totally the same. And then when you say that, yes, indeed, but it's a very long process, this talk between two communities that, moreover, I will be the philosopher here. So, no, I'm not economist, I'm not physicist. Physicists and economists, they have a very good idea of themselves. So, I'm philosopher when I'm saying that. So, they don't really like to say, no, you're right, you're wrong. I mean, that's quite interesting to see. And also, in terms of publication, if you check, I did a bibliometry. If you check, this is the two most closed disciplines So they, in
this
physics,
is what you told me before.
84% of the publication quote physics papers, and in economics is 86. All of the disciplines are more open. So that means we have a fight, not a fight, but they think that they have a fight, because in my eyes there is no fight. It's just a misunderstanding in my eyes. And we have two communities that are very clever. Both of them, they are clever, they are proud, but they are closed in terms of publication, in terms of, and then we try to find a bridge. It's not easy, but you are totally right, because you emphasized exactly this point. It's like, okay, how to reformulate what you are doing in other words in order to show you that what we are doing can be useful for you. And that's a huge challenge, and hopefully that's why we will have this kind of interaction, and hopefully we will have also more economists in the room. I mean, next time more economists in the room. I hope, I want that. I mean, I will try to have more economists in the room, because if we want to go in that direction, that's important. So all the questions you mentioned, we try to contribute a little bit, but they are.
But maybe we should go back to the audience and actually have input from the audience from their own experience on how they feel about it.
You mentioned about situation that physicists, econophysicists, do not think too much about details of the models or something like
No,
that.
Again, I don't know enough about it. I'm just claiming that I
But
can't
I
see
say-
too many contributions from the econophysics community.
You're right. I would like to explain why.
Yes,
sometimes
please.
it happens.
Yeah.
Because quite often the data or situation is critical. But in criticality, details of the model is unimportant. You see, criticality is a global feature, namely correlations over whole system. Whole system participate in fluctuations. Whole system participate in everything, and the micro details in almost unimportant in criticality. So that's the reason why sometimes when econophysics or physicists come to conclusion, okay, we have critical or near criticality, skip the details. So that's might be its reason why sometimes, and people from social, maybe economists are angry against us. Why do not speak about details? Because we are very near to criticality. That's one of the reasons, at least for me, but I think for physicists.
In that case, I think it's important to explain that and to clarify this aspect for economists, for example, in order for them to understand why people in physics they don't deal with that. Because if we don't explain them, they will say, oh, you don't do that, and then for you it's like, for physicists it's obvious, but for economists it's like, they are very strange why they don't focus on that. So the important, and this is, again, this is what I try to do, and then with Frank, is that to clarify these kind of implicit things in order to be sure to explain to the other part that
But
we have some reasons.
there are some economists who actually do make this point within the economic community. I mean, Paul Bowman would be one who is critical of this idea of a rational agent, which was in widespread use. I accept that the agent model is the use now. Try to move away from that, but there are economists.
Yeah, but I think it's a little bit different, because I think also if you look at acceptance, for instance, of behavioral economics within mainstream economics and mainstream finance, that is still an issue. So I'm actually even talking much more about mainstream finance or mainstream economics.
Orthodox.
Yes.
And mainstream.
Because there are battles
Yeah.
between behavioral finance and financial economics. There will be even battles. There are very deep battles between finance and economics. Why? Because if you look at option pricing theory, for instance, we all know it's preference free. You don't need any utility machinery in option pricing.
Yes.
Whilst, of course, this is a very, very important workhorse in mainstream economics.
Another point you mentioned about the bacteria.
Yeah, this was not me. I think it was the gentleman. Whose name I forgot also. I'm sorry, I really forgot.
Okay, but I would like to use it in general comment. Namely, usually we are looking for but there also to minimize utility function. And for example, in physics, if as a result you have shortest time to reach the result, we obtain, how to say, Fermat principle, to reach something using the shortest time. But if you are looking, for example, for utility in physics, it's Lagrangian, because you minimize Lagrangian to look for this optimal trajectory, it's variation calculation. So you mentioned about very important, how to say, solution or approach to the problems, variational approach to solutions. But another question, if I could, the question is what about path probability, Feynman path probability approach to quantum mechanics, and this methodology is easy to use because you observe a trajectory explicitly.
Yes.
Another is the Heisenberg formulation of quantum mechanics. You use operators and then evolution operators. You can construct this matrix.
So there is work on it. So the work by Fabio Bagarello, for instance, is addressing this. The work on Feynman path integration economics is also by Bihalba. So there's work used.
Yeah, I think it's. I really love the question what we want, by the way, because what you mentioned about behavioral finance, for instance, when the way, because at the beginning behavioral finance challenged the mainstream, but then after the mainstream integrate some result, and in this case it's not a challenge anymore. It means that they completely drop part of the approach, especially the idea that you have different kind of agents and so on. But the idea, if we want to integrate the result from statistical physics in the mainstream, then we will have to drop part of the idea you have at the beginning in Econophysics. If you don't want to do that, you will stay just other heterodoxy. And in this case, it's like, because especially in economics, it's very, you have the mainstream and you have the other things.
Yes. That's very.
And so,
very
if
much
you want to publish and if you want to talk with them, you have to be integrated in the mainstream. So the question is it possible? So I think it's a very good question, by the way, because it's like behavioral finance. When they integrate.
Well, that could be nice if in 20 years the next Nobel Prize in economics. I mean, sorry, because I know it's not a Nobel Prize. It's the prize in the memory of blah blah blah, would be an econophysicist, because it's the case with behavioral. Because that's the case with behavioral finance. Kahneman is a behavioral finance. So that means that they were outside, but progressively they became mainstream.
Yeah, but they translate. They translate.
So from the sociological
intuition in the mainstream.
Exactly. So in terms of sociology of science, we can imitate behavioral finance in order to do the same with econophysics. Anyway, so no, but a lot of questions here, and yes, this is the kind of questions we will come again and again on it. Hopefully, we will, I hope, maybe contribute to solve partly some of them.